Yo, what's going on, everybody? How's everyone doing today? No matter what time you're listening to this, whether it's afternoon, morning, night, whenever you decide to listen to this, hope everyone's having a great day. We got a cool episode today. This is Equip the Podcast, and you know the saying, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And I got a special guest on here with me, my boy. We go way back. This is a good brother, so please make him feel warm and welcome. This is my boy Everett. Everett, say what's up. Give a little spiel on what you do, a little bit, something about yourself real quick. Share it with everybody.
First off, I want to congratulate Ivan on 94 episodes. 94 episodes, you were 6 away from 100. And I just want to kind of give you your kudos, a quick shout out to you for staying committed. The podcasting that we do and the work that we do is not easy. So from one podcasting brother to another, I want to thank you and congratulate you on your due diligence, your work ethic, and you being committed and faithful to the cause. And that's giving people more than just fruit for thought. You're giving people a lot of spiritual vitamin that they can take with them every single day. So I am, as somebody who's done this for a long time, anybody that gets to the point where they are approaching 100 episodes, it is definitely something to honor. So I owe you a dinner when you get to episode 100.
Hey, I really do appreciate those words, bro. Like more than you know, like really more than you know. It's definitely a challenge, a good challenge, but a challenge nonetheless to stay consistent, to stick with it, especially in moments where it feels like you're like wasting time sometimes and like no one really cares and things like that. But it's still the love and the passion I have for this that just keeps me going, regardless of how many people listen or anything like that. And I really do appreciate those words because I know more than anybody else I personally know you could definitely relate because you literally do this and been doing this for a long time. So I look up a lot to what you've done and big reason why I even started the podcast in the first place. So I appreciate you and who you are, and I really appreciate those kind words. And I will hold you up for that dinner too. So I will not forget that. So I might just do the next 6 this week, so that way I can get straight to it.
The second weekend in March, I'm gonna hit you up.
All right. Say less. Say less. And for those of y'all new to listening to the podcast, Equip the Podcast, the whole point of this is to equip believers in their faith through their journey with Christ. So we talk about every and all things. It can be very super biblical, where we might just go through a passage of scripture and we talk about it, how we apply it to our life. It could be something in pop culture that's going on. It could be something apologetic. Like we cover pretty much everything on here. Like I'm not, I try to cover everything as possible because it all matters. So, this podcast was created to help equip believers, especially if you're new in the faith, or even like if you've been walking with God for a long time, just to help encourage believers in their faith and help them to equip as they're running the race, through life. So that's the main thing. So make sure you like and subscribe, of course. And we're also on YouTube, Equip the Podcast, Spotify, Apple, all the podcasts stuff. I don't know how many's even out there anymore. I feel like every time I turn around, it's like a different one these days. But let's get straight to it, my man, because I got my brother here. And this has been a long time coming. I've been on a couple of his podcasts, and I've been telling him I've been meaning to get him on here. So we did one actually recently on his podcast, a podcast episode, and he brought it up towards the end. I was like, you know what, you're right. No more bluffing. I was like, let's set it up this week or whatever, and then we made it happen. So we had no. I was like, he should have been on here a minute ago, like not episode 94. So my apologies for that, but I'm just glad that I got you on here because this man is very bright, got his head on his shoulders, and it's gonna be good conversation going back and forth with what we're about to talk about right now. So pretty much what we're talking about today, episode 94, the important takeaway from the Joel Osteen church shooting. And I really wanted to wait to talk about this because I wanted to, first and foremost, get the whole story out. You know what I'm saying? Because usually when it comes to any type of mass shooting or anything like that, the first couple of days, not all the right, info and facts is out there. It's a lot of speculation, and then you got a lot of people on social media tweeting things and saying stuff. So it's never good to really, in my opinion, like always talk about incidents like this without waiting a few days for all the info and facts and things to come out. So I really wanted to wait, and then a lot of other YouTube podcast people, they all been talking about it, things like that. So I kind of wanted to sit and look at what other people been saying and wondering, like, do I feel like they're approaching it right or not approaching it right or things like that before, I got my brother on here to talk about this. So I think it's enough time has passed to talk about it. So for those who don't know, pretty much there was a shooting that happened at Joel Osteen's church, like, I think it was last week or about 7 days ago, I want to say. And there was a mass shooter, a woman who came in there with a trench coat. She had a rifle, and she went in there and started shooting. And there was two off-duty cops that was there that approached her, killed her, you know what I'm saying, and then stopped the shooting from progressing. So what I want to do real quickly before we even get into details and really talk about this, because there was a lot that was said, there was a lot that happened and things like that I want us to kind of talk about after this news broke out. So real quickly, I just want to read the actual article real quick, because so that way I'm not in here just sharing fake news or just saying my opinion or anything like that. Like, this is I'm going straight to the internet, and I'm going to more of a neutral site. I'm not going to do CNN and Fox, so you can't say, "Oh, Ivan, you're just a liberal," because I'm going on CNN, or Ivan, you're just a crap. Oh, you're just a Republican. You're conservative because you're going to Fox. No, I'm going to go to the most neutral I can be. I mean, I'm sure AP has some type of political, but I think they're the most neutral out of the other two news sites. So let's go into it real quickly. All right. So nearly a week after a woman opened fire at celebrity pastor Joel Osteen's Texas megachurch, there are still questions about a motive behind the attack and scrutiny on how the person with a record of criminal misdemeanors and a history of mental illness will be able to obtain her weapons. So this will be key. We're definitely going to get into that. Police said that Janice Moreno used a legally purchased AR-style rifle in February 11th attack that also left her 7-year-old son and a man at a Houston church seriously wounded. The attack ended when she was gunned down by security. Law enforcement and church officials were relieved the number of dead and wounded was not significantly higher. The shooting happened in a hallway just before the start of a service and never reached the main sanctuary. Thank you, Jesus. In a video message posted on social media, Osteen said Sunday's 11 a.m. service would celebrate a time of healing and restoration. It's been a difficult week, something we never dreamed of we had to deal with, but we look back now and we see the faithfulness of God to protect it and watch over us. Osteen said, "Here's what to know about the shooting. Moreno drove up to the massive church, formerly the home of the NBA Houston Rockets, blah, 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 just before 2 p.m. Wearing a trench coat and a backpack, she pointed a gun at an armed security guard to get into the building to open fire. Moreno also carried a 22 caliber rifle that police said she did not use. Moreno was killed in exchange of gunfire with security. Houston police officers said, and an agent with the Texas Alcohol Beverage Commission, her son Samuel, who Moreno brought with her to church, was struck in the head. A man in his 50s was shot in the hip. Osteen was in the building, but on a different floor. Now, what's the shooter's motive? Police have released a few details about the possible motive, and they haven't said where and how Moreno obtained a rifle. Investigators said Moreno's home and found anti-Semitic writings by her Houston police commander, Chris Hassing said. Oh, that's interesting. The rifle had a Palestine sticker on the buttstock, and a Hassig noted Moreno's former in-laws are Jewish. Wow, that's even more interesting. Okay. Hassig described Moreno as a lone wolf who did not act as part of a larger group. He also said Moreno sometimes used both male and female alliances, but investigators had determined through interviews and past police reports that she identified as a female.
So, to confirm, this was a trans woman?
No. So that was the early speculated rumors that people were talking about. And I think Fox caught some flack because they went out and said that she was trans because she did go by a male alias because she has a long criminal record, but she doesn't describe herself as a trans man or anything like that. Like, she's a woman. She, confirms that she's a woman and identifies as a woman, but she used male aliases to do her crimes and stuff like that.
Oh, okay,
So
got
she wasn't trans or anything like that. So Fox caught a little flack. I mean, a little flack with that. 'Cause I think they were like the first news to actually say that she was, but they kind of jumped the gun without finding out more information.
oh,
Yeah, so she wasn't trans. She was yeah, she identified as a woman and everything like that. So
about to say because that's gonna edit what I gotta say. What I was gonna say.
yeah, but
Then-
on the same token, I mean, she did have anti-Semitic stuff in her house apparently, and a Palestine sticker on her gun. But we'll get to that later. Hasek noted a dispute between Moreno and her ex-husband's family. Will Carranza, Moreno's former mother-in-law, said in the court filings for Moreno's 2022 divorce that Moreno threatened people with guns and was careless with how they were stored. That included keeping an unlocked gun in her son's diaper bag and threatened to shoot her ex-husband while their son slept in the bag. Wow. In an interview with the Associated Press, Carranza said to her warnings to authorities, the church staff about Moreno's mental health struggles were nowhere. Church spokesperson Don Oil said records show Moreno sporadically attended services at Lakewood for a couple of years, but there were no records of her being in church after 2022. Okay. Moreno's criminal history included charges of forging $100 bills, a 2009 assault conviction for kicking a detention officer, which resulted in a 180-day county jail sentence, and a 2022 misdemeanor count for carrying of a weapon. I guess that's not the worst I was thinking, but okay. Moreno's misdemeanor convictions would not have stopped her from buying a rifle. Her history of mental illness could have triggered federal restrictions, but legal experts said there's not yet enough information publicly available to know. Houston police said Moreno was put under emergency detention in 2016, but did not elaborate. In Texas, emergency detention is not an arrest, but allows an officer to detain a person with mental illness and will pose a substantial risk or serious harm to themselves or others. Not everyone who is detained loses their right to own a gun, said Lindsay Nichols, police policy director at the Giffords Law Center to prevent gun violence. People in a mental health crisis can be temporarily taken into custody and released by a doctor who decides they are no longer in danger. Texas, blah 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 blah. All right, who is Joel Osteen? Okay, we don't need to know about him. All right, so that's just a rough draft of all that. All right, so let's remove that. Okay. All right. So pretty much the reports is all right. So this lady, she has somewhat of a criminal history. I mean, we seen the charges. I mean, it's a criminal history, but I mean, I feel like sometimes when they say criminal history, they made it seem like she had like a long laundry list of really bad. I mean, what she did. I mean, I'm not saying. I mean, but it's misdemeanor type stuff, if anything. Really, the unlawfully carrying of a weapon, maybe that might have been the biggest red flag. But I mean, it's not like a super long list. So she did attend there for a little bit, but hasn't had any record attended there since 2022. She threatened ex-husband, stuff like that. She went there in trench coat. Okay, so I think where I really want to go at this first, bro, I guess as we go through, because I really wanted to make sure we read at least the accurate information on where they're at today before we really start dissecting and looking at certain things and stuff like that. So the first thing I kind of wanted to talk about is that I feel like, okay, so in the Christian church community, Joel Osteen, for the most part, is not everybody's favorite. Okay, he's not everyone's favorite. And to be quite honest, I don't care for him either. I don't. But, however, there's still a level of grace that has to be shown here when it comes to people in his church being victimized. And despite of how he preaches, despite of prosperity gospel and all that, and all these other things that Joel Osteen is, I mean, he catches a lot of flack over the years. I remember with the flood in the storm in Houston when they flooded, and he was getting criticism because he locked the church doors and stuff like that, and then he opened the church doors and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, so I get it. Making church pastors is easy for people to always come at them and stuff like that. So he got a lot of flack all the time. Like, and people like in the church community are very hesitant to come to, or at least to even say something nice. I feel like because of how he preaches the word of God and the prosperity gospel, how that's not true, obviously. And like I said, I'm not a fan of Joel Osteen either when it comes to his preaching or anything like that. I mean, he is a really nice human being though. But so How do you think? I guess the church community should have, even though, like I said, he's not in most circles the most celebrated guy, but when it comes to something horrific like this, like how do you think we should be handling at least news like this of happening in somebody's church like this, like something horrific like this? Like, what do you think?
I think that one of the things that we have to first of all understand is that a school shooting anywhere is a problem.
Yeah.
I don't care what religion you are. I don't care who you are as a human being. If you are a decent human being in running a decent community and that community gets attacked over a school shooting, it's one of those situations where it's horrific, it's traumatic on everybody involved. If you weren't the person that got shot, it's just as traumatic as the person that did, because you were that close to something chaotic.
Right.
We have to, the problem with the church as a whole is that we pick and choose what to be brought to the radar. Like we kind of, so I'm trying to word this the right way without coming off like too harsh, but there's moments where I gotta let it rip.
Mm-hmm. Shoot, speak your mind. Shoot, go ahead. Speak your
The
mind.
church sometimes picks and chooses what people to feel sorry for.
Mm-hmm.
If it is a mega pastor, and because we know how some people in churches that are smaller feel about mega pastors, or even casual churchgoers feel about mega pastors, there are people that look at them and go, okay, if something happens, they can just go into the bank and fix anything up and pay for medical bills and do this and that. Like they have enough resources to make sure that this is taken care of. Now, the issue that I have with that is that the ignorance of people to think that money can take care of any wound that is seen and unseen. That is far from the truth. There is scars, there is wounds from these school shootings that it's going to take God and prayer and constant therapy and constant mental health sessions for them to finally get over this. Like we sit over here and assume that people that are and it's classic. People that are in the 10%, whether they own a church, whether they own an entire business, the 10%, the 10%, the rich of the rich. The average person, going to church or not, doesn't feel sorry for them because they look at them like you have everything at your disposal to be as healthy as you could possibly be. You have the fabulous house, you have all these material things, you have all these resources that the average middle class person does not. So because of that, I don't feel sorry for you as much. We as a society pick and choose whether we are going to feel sorry for somebody that we think is in the 10%. That's the other issue about it.
I agree. I mean, and I feel like sometimes people are guilty by association because they are attending the church from someone who's in that 10%, like you're saying. You know what I mean? Like they're in that guilty in that 10%. That, as you said, like, oh well, he has the money, he got all this different stuff. But at the end of the day, like, that doesn't buy life. That doesn't buy people grief. I don't care how much is in your bank account. And I'm talking about even from like when you even look at like police aren't when you look at all like the police shootings, like the unarmed shootings and stuff like that, and you know how sometimes like the county pays the family and the victim and things like that. Like, you think they care about that money? You think anybody like who's been done wrong, and even when people get justice, it's cool to get justice, but what's the more important thing? Like, what do you think that family or whoever that with that lost one rather have? They rather have the person back. They don't care. Money's not gonna fix that. Even justice don't fix it. It gives closure, sure. You know what I'm saying? It can give some closure, sure. I mean, I guess. Closure does help with the healing growth process. I'm not saying like that's wrong per se. But they want the person back. All those things doesn't really matter because the person that they know and love, are gone. And I think with Joel Osteen, the reason why people the flag is because A, he's a big church pastor, and then B, because of what the type of message that he preached about. And like I said, I'm not a fan, but at the end of the day, you have to understand the dramatics of what happened. Like nowhere's safe. You can't go to school, can't go to the mall, you can't go to sports games, you can't go to sports parades,
You
you
can't
can't,
watch a movie in peace.
yeah, can't watch a movie. Like you can't even go to a place of worship without someone potentially going there. Like, look, think about Dylan Roof in South Carolina when he killed all those black churchgoers like years ago. You know what I mean? Like nowhere is really safe. And the thing is that as the church sometimes, and like I said, when it comes to certain people that you don't like, we lose the grace and compassion. We lose these type of things sometimes because we can't step aside something we don't like about somebody and remove that to the side and look at the humanity aspect of it. Because regardless of the fact, you can even look at. I just think about sometimes when, like, I think about the Beatitudes. I think about what Jesus said on the Sermon on the Mount when he started with the Beatitudes, and those qualities that he are saying, those are selfless qualities. Those are selfless qualities. Blessed are the merciful, for you shall obtain mercy. Right? Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they should be called sons of God. Like, listen to all these qualities that Jesus is saying while he's on the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5. And at the church, sometimes we can miss that when it comes to these situations because we feel so strongly about somebody and don't like somebody. And at the end of the day, you don't have to like people. You don't. I don't have to like certain people. I don't have to. But we are called to treat people certain ways. We are called to love people. We are called to even love your enemies. We are called to have compassion and grace, to be peacemakers, to be merciful, right? To do these things that the opposite of what the world rejoices, because the world doesn't rejoice peacemakers. They like drama. Like the world's not gonna rejoice people who are merciful. They don't care about that. Or people who are forgiven, or people who mourn for others. Like the world doesn't rejoice those things. That's why Jesus brought all these up, because these are what true blessings are. Not you know what I mean? So I feel like when I look at situations like this, I think of the Beatitudes. I think about what Jesus said, because these are the challenging things. But these are the things that are closely related to Christ. And as believers, if you are believing in Christ, this is what we have to represent and to do these things, even when we don't want to, even if we don't like this person. You know what I mean? Like, just even say a prayer for them. You don't even got to acknowledge, you don't got to say nothing to nobody. You don't have to even be negative. Just pray for them on your own, and you could just leave it at that. And I think sometimes when it comes to, like I said, like with Joel Osteen, because he's not a lot liked a lot in church circles, um, that even when something horrific like this happens, people really still can't come out and say anything necessarily positive or something that's encouraging or something that at least say that, like we're praying for you guys, like we're encouraging you guys, things like, things like that. And I think that's kind of sad.
Yeah, I also, and not to interrupt, I also think that it is kind of sad that this did not get the media attention that other school shootings, I mean, that other, shootings have happened in this country. The fact that this happened and I saw little to no media coverage, like it wasn't plastered all over, in my personal opinion, it wasn't plastered enough
I think so too.
CNN or Fox News like Sandy Hook was. It wasn't plastered, on mainstream media being like, hey, there's a school. But when it came to, when it came to this particular incident, there wasn't as much grand media coverage over this, which raised an eyebrow to me. Like literally, I didn't hear about this until Ivan, you told me about it.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
Everett, not to cut you off, I'm glad you're going this way, because let's actually, why do you think that is? Like, why do you think it didn't get the coverage that it did? And granted, for one instance, okay, I get it. Not a lot of people, which is a great thing, by the way. Shout out, to those on those cops who weren't working, like those off-duty cops that were there, that were armed, that were able to intervene and do what they, granted they had, they had to kill her, but if they didn't, it could have been 40 people killed. It could, like, she could have went to the sanctuary,
sprayed the whole congregation.
You know what I mean? So it's like they did their job. They stepped in, even dead center in the front of a rifle, and and they had their gun and they did what they had to do. And it's a great thing that a lot of people didn't die, but still, why do you think it didn't get any media coverage? Like, why do you think that, or as much media coverage? Do you think it's because of Joel himself? Do you think it's because of the woman's baby politics and belief? Like, why do you think that is?
There's a plethora of things, right? So we know how society feels about the current church, the current state of the church, how people feel about it.
Right.
The people today do not respect and have the reverence of what church is for a plethora of reasons. Part of that is us, and it's our fault for allowing people that claim that they are the example of Jesus, people that claim that they are the closest thing to Jesus, but the whole time they are predators, and also they have turned around and abused and have altered the very definition of what a Christian is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Part of that does fall on us.
Yeah.
The generation before us had that same problem too. So now here we are standing in the gap and trying to repair something that could have been went on for 10, 15, 20 years. And through that, there was a lot of church hurt. There's a lot of people that never look at the church with the same reverence. Some people look at it as a joke. Some people look at it as, what is the point of showing up and worshiping if constantly I already have to worry about snakes in the grass when I'm out in the world. Now I got to come into a place of worship where I got to worry about snakes in the grass, even in these hollowed, reverent four walls. That environment has caused people not to have enough compassion for the church. Another aspect of that, and I'm going to be very frank about this, those same people are being led astray by the very thing that we're fighting against. Sometimes we don't fight against flesh and blood. We fight against spiritual warfare. And a lot of people have been led astray by the lies told by the enemy, by the lies told that there is no other way to handle this but to separate yourself and call out the church. Now, I think it is totally fine to call out the church, but there is a diplomatic way of doing it. And the problem is that people will, yes, they were hurt by the church, but now you are allowing the enemy to come in, and instead of diplomatically, addressing the situation and trying to find some type of solution, now it's, I'm going to use my platform to kick your back in because you go to church. So now those two situations are not just spread out through the Christian community, it's now spread out through society.
Right.
Say what you want about any other religion. No other religion that I've seen, I have not seen. So, like, for example, if somebody in the Nation of Islam has an issue with another brother, you're not seeing that. You're not seeing like a drama-filled mess all over Twitter or X or Instagram or Facebook. They have a conversation face to face. That is handled. That is done. You don't see people in some other religion or other religions doing this on social media, bashing the church every 5 single seconds, bashing Jesus every 5 single seconds. You only see it mainly in the Christian community where it's outward drama and it's put on Front Street on social media. I may be wrong, but from my perspective and from what I've seen in my lifetime, other religious communities, if something happens, it's taken care of in-house. The only other community that I say that does get bashed publicly is the Catholic community. For a plethora of reasons that if y'all want to take the time to read them and stuff like that. But outside of that, like those factors that are happening, not just with people that were once going to church, that were once Christians, that once identified as Christians. Now those same people are going to other people being like, this is a joke. People that have never even experienced who Jesus is.
Mm.
So it's a trickle down effect that happens to the point where, how is it that we are taught to be compassionate, to be loving? This is the basis for our religious beliefs as Christians. And we are now in a situation where if a Christian suffers, whether they have the money or not, whether they're a mega pastor or whether they're a pastor of a smaller community, it has gotten so bad that if somebody goes in and air outs an entire church, then it's almost like people are hesitant to be compassionate. When it's the very definition, being a Christian is showing compassion. Jesus showed you compassion and love time and time again, even up till his death. And even after that with his resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the very part of the foundation that we're based on. And to see this happening, these are the trickle down effects of what happens when you don't take care of stuff in house. Because now people, this particular situation could be a domino effect and could be a mirror of how we really feel about Christianity as a whole. And I'm not trying to say that Joel Osteen is the definition of Christianity. In no way, shape, or form am I trying to say that. But the fact that a well-known mega church, one of probably the most well-known mega churches in the country,
Mm-hmm.
somebody came in there with ill intentions to air that whole church out, and this doesn't get the news coverage.
Yeah.
So now, God forbid, if that person had gone further and the cops didn't show up there and she found Joel Osteen and let it ring. And if there were more victims on top of that, like, can you imagine the magnitude of how that would affect?
It could have been really bad. I mean, it really could have been.
It could have been crazy.
It could have been bad.
And you know what? And I hate to say this, knowing how the media is, sometimes if the story doesn't have enough casualties, the media will not report it.
Yeah.
The media will not put it on blast. The media will not. If 50 people got aired out in that church,
yeah,
especially in a mega church,
right.
I hate to say this, I ain't trying to be speculative, but I think at that point, I hate to say this, it would have probably got more media press.
Probably.
That's a crazy thing to say, but knowing how soulless and knowing how unforgiving and uncaring the media can be, I wouldn't be surprised if that happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think that has a lot. I think that has a lot to do with it, as well as the fact that which in a way I feel like that's kind of a good thing, because a lot of people didn't die. Right. So in one token, that is a great thing that a lot of people did die. But on another token, it's still alarming that this happened, and and really just piggybacking kind of off what you're saying, because I think it's even more deeper than just, oh, Christians did this and this type of thing, which I've been on this podcast and talked a lot about what the church, has done wrong, and what we, because it's not a secret. And most true believers, don't even hide away from it. Like we all easily could acknowledge it. But I think a good portion could be just the fact that could be another way to just be like, okay, look, it's the church. Like, because Christianity is always like a hidden pole to a lot of other people. Like, Christianity is very disrespected out of most religions. Like most religions, you can't talk about the Jewish community, you can't talk about Islam. You can't, because if you come out to the side of your neck and even just say, I'm talking about not even just like derogatory terms for the most part. If you just say anything, you could just be like, you could talk about Islam, you can talk about Muhammad in a disrespectful way. They'll come for you. You know what I'm saying? They'll literally come for you. And I'm not saying people should go out here and talk bad about Muhammad, but I'm just saying if you do, they're gonna come for you. You know what I mean? If you talk anything about Jews, they're gonna come for you. Like when it comes to Christianity, it's not like that. It's open season, and I feel like that has a lot. That could be a lot to do with it too. It's just the fact that it's open season, and Christianity is the one religion where there's no respect with it at all. Even if you like I said, even if you don't even have to agree, don't believe it or nothing, like there's still a level of respect that other people have for other religions versus Christianity. Well, in American context, I would say I'm not gonna say that's a worldwide thing, but in American context, for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think that has a lot to do with it as well because it's just easy to do that. Everyone says it. It's just easy. You can say that. I mean, you can be disrespectful as you want. Like I've heard a lot of different things that in other different contexts. If you use it against them, you'll be called phobic or called this anti this that the third. The stuff you said like they said about Christianity. So to me, it's just a little double standard when it comes to that. But that's another topic for another podcast. But I'm just saying, as far as this, I think that's one reason why people just don't really care as much is because they like Christianity is just like the punching bag a lot. So I think that has a lot to do with it. Honestly, I think what another thing could be what it seems like maybe the shooter's political ideologies. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because when the shooters usually sometimes when the shooter was like a racist white dude or someone has racist ties and things like that, sometimes the media wasn't quick or is not quick to say their political affiliations or don't call them a mass shooter or a terrorist or something like that. They'll just call it a guy with this type of mental illness and things like that, which mental illness is real, but I don't care. Like, personally, I don't care. Like, mental illness or not, terrorism is terrorism. So,
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Terrorism. Like, a lot of people deal with mental illness. I deal with mental illness, and it doesn't get to the point where I want to do those things. You know what I'm saying? And I take that very seriously when it comes to mental illness, but it's still an act of terrorism at the end of the day, regardless of whatever you're dealing with. Like, there's no excuse. So maybe that has something to do with it. They realize that she has, the anti-Semitic stuff in her house that the report said, or the Palestine sticker on her gun, which the whole Israel Hamas war type stuff. So that maybe that could be something like, oh crap, this is somebody who acted out who supports this, so maybe let's not talk about it because if not, they're gonna think everyone who's for Palestine or whatever is a mess. Which obviously that's foolish to believe that, but that could be a reason why people are not quick because this person has this type of ideology, and I think that has a lot to do with it too. Because whether someone's from one spectrum or the next spectrum, the other sides are not quick to post or to talk about it because of it, and I think that could have something to do with it as well because it does. Because we want to know why the shooter does what they do. We want to know why, what's in their head, what are they thinking. I know that's hard to do once they're dead. So that's why you go to their houses, you go to their belongings, you find out as much information you can to know the reason why they did what they did. And to be honest, we never might know the actual true reason besides the little evidence that we had. We don't know what happened when she was attending the church. We don't know why, what happened in her life. Like, we don't know. Like, we're not, she easily could have been harmed. She could have went through a lot of different stuff. Like, she could have. But, I even seen people justify her for doing what she did because they were assuming that she went there and they did something to her. I've seen people tweet about that. And my thing is, even if, let's just say, for instance, let's say that did happen. Let's just say that she had bad relations with people at Joel Osteen's church. That still don't justify her going in there with a gun aiming to kill people. It just don't. It don't justify that at all. Like, regardless of what your experience or what happened, you don't justify that. And sometimes I think we're in a day and age where we can justify anything if we are sympathetic to the reaction to it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we could be very sympathetic at times. Like, well, yeah, it's wrong that this happened, of course, but guess what? This person did do this to him, so I guess it made a great reason for them to do X, X, Y, and Z. And I don't care regardless of the spectrum you're on. Wrong is still wrong in my opinion. Even if you were done wrong and you do something even way worse to them, it's still wrong on your part, to do that. And like I said, we don't really know for sure what even happened with her that caused her to do this. Like, it's still speculation, of course. But I'm just saying, even if that was the case, that's still very wrong to do so. To still go in there and got her son shot in the head in the process. You put your own boy life at risk. I mean, he's fighting for his life because you want to go there and do something crazy in other people's lives. So now you put your son's life at risk by doing the actions that she did. So I mean, like I said, I think there's a lot of reasons to why they might not got a lot of media coverage. Whether it's something that is simple, like, oh, a lot of people didn't die, they announced it, okay, it's over, cool, da da da, or it could be something more like, oh, the political affiliations maybe from the shooter or the stabs at the church. I mean, I think all those probably has a hint of truth in it, to be honest. Like, I'm pretty sure a lot of them has a hint of truth in that. But I mean, we never really know. I mean, I think we're just, obviously we're speculating, but we're talking about it. But like, just watching the reports and watching how people responded to it, it was just like alarming to me as far as lack of sympathy for what happened. Even regardless, we don't care about Joel Osteen. I think that's still an issue. Um, Even lack of the excuses of why the shooter did what they did and still giving them a pass, the mental health pass, which, like I said, I know that's a really touchy subject. And like I said, I've did a podcast episode, plenty of them actually, with mental health issues and talking about that and how serious that is. And you could also talk about, well, she has past mental health issues, how she able to get a gun, da da da. And I'm not gonna get into the whole gun law debates in Texas and all the other areas because that's not my scope of practice. But I will say, we do have to be honest and just say, that mental health or not, still wrong to go in there and gonna do that. Like, that's not a pass, regardless of what happened to them. That, like, to me, that's not a pass at all to do for that thing. So
Yeah, I definitely agree that it is definitely not a pass, and it's definitely the problem is in today's world, we don't like accountability on any front. We
yep.
don't like to face any type of punishment. We feel that we can be emotional, do what we need to do what we think is right, be emotional, not and lack the emotional intelligence and the compassion to be like, okay, if I make this move, how is it going to affect these other people that may have nothing to do with my particular situation or my feelings? If I go and do this, we don't take time to even think. We just move on emotion and just go. And that is what moving that way, moving recklessly like that, is that the enemy's playground at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get this person to do this. They're going to crash out. And then I still get what I want at the end of the day. More trauma. And that way I can intervene and do the destructive things I need to do. That's the mindset of the enemy, bro. That's that every single time that we have these discussions about these particular shootings, don't matter if it's a school, a church, a building, a catastrophic, this person has conflict with this person, it leads to a war between these two countries. Every single time that these incidents happen, somebody is being used by the enemy and they don't even realize it because they don't have the lack. They possess a lack of emotional intelligence, which is the enemy's playground.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean,
I want to, and not to cut you off.
go ahead. Cool.
The biggest thing that I've learned is throughout my life, and Ivan, we've seen this, and I'll just kind of be open and share this. We went to the same community college together.
Yeah.
We came across a lot of people that were struggling with different things.
Yeah.
And at the time, us being as young as we were, we weren't aware of what people were struggling with to the degree that we know now.
Yeah.
So we did not have all of the knowledge of what's going on that we have now. And back at that particular time, there were people that did things, said things, moved a certain type of way, all because they lacked emotional intelligence. And the second that a feeling was done, they would jump the gun and not think, how is it going to affect me when I'm 30? How is it going to affect me when I'm 25? How is this going to affect me when I'm 40? Heads just moved and did stuff. And there were times one of us would say, hey, man, I don't think that's a good idea. There were times I'm literally looking at Ivan and going, and I'm watching him go, I don't think it's a good idea. There's times Ivan has seen me give advice and be like, look, bro, I don't think it's a good idea. You have to look at X, Y, and Z and do this and change this over here. We both have been in that. We both, at some point during those years, were in that environment. But the reason why that we were hip to that is because God equipped us with a level of emotional intelligence, even in our 20s.
Well, that's called the Spirit. That's really what that is.
Yeah.
People, not everybody's gonna have access to that because obviously they're not believers. So we got that discernment from the Spirit. I mean, even though at times when we didn't want, obviously we ain't gonna always listen and always prompt at that younger age, obviously.
Right.
But you're 100% right. The emotional intelligence that people have is really that discernment. They don't have that discernment. They don't have how to evaluate. If I do this, what's the outcome going to happen? If I do this, if I happen to partake in this, if I happen to make this irrational decision, if I happen to do this, what's going to happen? And I get maybe the mental health thing for her, obviously could cloud that, right? Which of course, that's the thing. That's the thing about mental health and dealing with that is it does cloud judgment. You are not acting proper. Different stuff is going off in you that like that's why it makes it so tough because stuff like that happens. But when does it get to the point where we do take more responsibility, as you said, for our mental health and know it is an issue? And like I said, the shooter probably didn't have the discernment. She didn't have maybe the right help. Maybe she did have the right help. Maybe she just wasn't in a process in a mind frame to really take it and to really accept it at the time. But at the end of the day, sometimes, regardless of even mental health, at times, like we still know what we're doing. We do know what we're doing. Like even sometimes when you hear stories of people that did something really crazy that they never do because one time they just snapped. You know what I mean? Like they just got so angry they just snapped, they just black out, and they did something crazy. And it's like, wow, I never thought someone would do such a thing like that. It's because they just snapped. Everything went out the window. And that moment, like their emotions and everything, it took over. And I think at times, our like mental health could do that. But when does that excuse start to be like, you know what? I get you dealing with that. I get that, but what are you doing to help yourself with that? What is the limit where it's like, what action is too far? When it comes to that. And I think that's like the real question. Like, what level of responsibility are we taking? And then sometimes, like even though you said you do, but because at the end of the day, we are talking about flesh and blood. We're talking about the enemy at work. But a lot of times it's our own sin that the enemy is not even responsible for. That sometimes we can easily blame the enemy, even the church community. We can blame no, it's not the enemy. It's your desire to want to do this. You want to do this. This is your fleshly desire that wants to do this. You're not blaming it. Don't blame the enemy. The enemy you could know, which you possibly like, but he would know to like that if you didn't have the desire in the first place.
Right.
This is the sinful desire that you have.
Well, not even that, the desire to act on it.
Right.
It's one thing to have the desire and just get away from it. It's another thing to have the desire and then choose to act.
Yeah. To fully act on it, or to think about it enough where you're fantasizing whatever it is, even in your head, before you even do it. Mm-hmm. That's where it matters. And yes, the enemy influences all the time. Obviously, I'm not saying that, but a lot of time we'll even use him as that. Like he'll probably, I'm sure Satan would take the credit for a lot of stuff we give him credit for. But okay, I'll take credit for that. I didn't really do this, but hey, but a lot of time it ain't. It's us. It's us. our own stuff that we do is us. And sometimes instead of just blaming everybody, we got to look at ourselves and realize what more that we can do. And like I said, I don't know what was going through her head or anything like that. Obviously, wasn't something good if she went and did what she did. But we can't justify what she did, no matter what we think might have happened to her. We can't justify her going in there and ending innocent people's lives, which put her son at risk, getting shot in the head and stuff like that, because the officers had to respond because you showed up there in a trench coat, with a rifle, and you put your own son in jeopardy, who you probably love more than anybody. You put him in jeopardy for him. Why was he even like? It's just so much stuff where it's just like it's craziness. Like I said, I'm not gonna say like she was clearly 100% in her right state of mind. I'm not gonna say that. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna say that. But at the end of the day, it's still premeditated what you did. It wasn't like you woke up and you literally was like in a trance. Someone put you in a trance and you just did that without knowing. Like you still knew what you did. You still woke up. You premeditated. Clearly, you thought about it. It's not like you just woke up randomly. Oh, you know what? I'm just gonna go to Lakewood Church and I'm just bringing this rifle. And I'm just gonna like it had to be. It was a thought brought into it. You definitely thought about it. You made a decision to do what you did, regardless if you're not even in your mental right state. Like it happens. Like even like there's been times where people haven't been in the right state of mind or felt foggy and felt like that. Like, even though your judgment went out the window, you still knew what you were doing. You know what I mean? So I mean, I don't know. It's just a hard topic because it's so much dynamics that go into this. Like so many dynamics that go into this. Like when it comes to the situation, that I feel like a lot of people could take away from it. And I know we almost at the hour mark, but like let's talk about real quickly because I think it's important not only to talk and to digest information and stuff, but we need to talk about what's a good thing to learn from this. Like what can we take away and learn from this situation as a whole? Like what is your thoughts on that?
I think it's one of those things that we have to do a better job at educating people on how to take care of themselves spiritually, mentally, and physically.
Yeah.
All of those go hand in hand. All of those help to put yourself in a better position. And also we have to be willing to start saying, hey, that was my fault for doing it. Hey, what's a way that I like, hey, my bad for making you feel this way. How do we move forward? Because life is too short. We're not getting any younger. And I just want to handle this the best way possible.
Yeah.
People need to hear that. And people need to act on it. Because all of this conflict could literally have been stopped based on a conversation, based on a therapy session, based on, hey, let's actually care for this person. Imagine if churches, big or small, invested in therapy sessions for couples, therapy sessions for mental health for individuals, if they partnered with the clinics and did a whole mental health push, a whole mental health campaign. The month of May, from what I know, is Mental Health Month. So if there was a very, very pristine push to make sure that happens, to make sure it's accessible. I understand that, yes, we have the Bible, and there are great examples of that. But we know how people are. People are very visual. So if as Christians, if we take the time to focus on our mental health more, because sometimes y'all, and I'm going to say this as a community, we get so tied up with being a Christian and doing the work that we don't put any work into our mental health. We have the faith. Some of us have the faith, and some of us, go hard when we got the faith and we do all these works. But we ain't taking care of our mental health to keep the faith and the work going. Like, you human at the end of the day. Yes, God has given you certain abilities, and those God-given abilities has propelled you to where you are now. Right, wrong, or indifferent. So, but we have to make a very, very big push in terms of mental health. We have to make a big push. It's not about just giving somebody something seasonally and just saying, look at me, I helped this person out. No. How do we open up even more resources to do what we need to do? And at the end of the day, I think we'll get further ahead. But there's a lot of stuff we got to tackle. And if we tackle it one day at a time, we can get to where we got to get to.
Okay. No, I agree, bro. I guess one of the biggest things we could take away is, well, for me, the most alarming part was not necessarily like I said, I'm not I don't know what everyone said in their own churches and stuff like that. Like I don't know. Some people could have been like at least saying prayers for for Joel's church and everything like that. So on one hand, I'm not gonna say I know everything, obviously, like the whole conglomerate of the country, but I still think even like I said, even with Joel, like I said, I'm not a fan of his preaching or anything like that, clearly, but when something like that does happen at his church, I still think as a believer in Christ, I'm sorry, I don't think you should. You know what I mean? You should still have compassion in the way we can still pray for his congregation, pray for what happened, because that's something that's horrific. And the reality is that can happen anywhere. That literally can happen anywhere. There's not much we really can do to prevent that, unless you don't have metal detectors and a lot of arms, which most can't afford that anyway. You know what I'm saying? So let's just be honest. So that literally can happen anywhere. So I think we do need to remember the Beatitudes. We do need to remember how we treat people that, even though we don't like or care for them, you can at least pray for the victim family. Pray for the little boy. Pray for all the victims that were shot. There was a lot that happened. So I do believe that we need to learn how to deal with, even when people we don't like, learn how to deal with them and do the thing that's harder to do versus the easiest thing to do, and not really talk about it or address it or not really care about it. So in one fathom, to me, one of the biggest alarm is that how we kind of treat it. And like I said, some don't even see him as a brother in Christ. They don't think he's really a believer. Whatever. The point is, still, this is a place of worship that's been attacked, and that's something that could happen to anybody. You know what I mean? There's a lot that could happen. There's a lot of risk. There's a lot. You don't know what happened on Sunday. It could happen to your church. It can happen anywhere. So, with that being said, at least have the compassion, have have that love to at least be able to pray and to at least say positive things and to just think and reflect, because that's something that can happen at your church. Maybe that this could be a time where you can learn, look, at our church, maybe we need to up our security. Maybe there's something we need to be thinking about, because this is real. This is real life, y'all. This is real life. And as believers in Christ, attack can happen. Yes, we live in a country where we can you have the freedom to express whatever you want to believe in, right? Like other Christians in other areas of the world, they don't have that freedom. Mm-hmm. They can't do that. You know what I mean? They probably wish they could live over here where you could do that, where they can't express their faith openly without being killed, legitimately killed. Not no, oh, they said a bad post or they mock, no, legitimately. You know what I mean? So in one way we're blessed, but in the next way, this is a form of it for us. So we need to take that into consideration and be at least more compassionate in this type of instance. And then, as you said about mental health, which I do know a lot of churches do mental health. They do have, whether they bring people in, whether they have counseling sessions, things like that. Because I think we're in a day and age now where we realize that counseling is important. Seeing therapy sessions is important. Seeing a professional, right, where you can have Jesus and therapy, where both are go hand in hand. You know what I mean? Where obviously Jesus is the most important relationship that you have. You go to him, but there's nothing wrong with going to your therapist as well. They're a trained professional. You can have both of these things. In my podcast episode I have with my boy Kurt, we went into a lot about it was a minute ago too. It was one of our early episodes, but we went into that a lot. And those things are important to have those at the church, and a lot of churches are doing that. And at the end of the day, if you're not doing it, we should do something. Because at the end of the day, people ain't gonna be perfect at it.
Right.
Be able to, because at the end of the day, we're not gonna be able to save everybody or prevent this for everybody. Because this ain't you could do it. You could be the most popular mental health church in America. That doesn't mean this still won't happen at your campus. But it's just making the effort. Know that this is something that is important, and at least doing what we can to address the thing. I think that's the important part that me and Everett are bringing to, is that address the mental health, address these things. And I think a lot of churches are doing that. But you know, there's always more things we can do. Like there's always other extra stuff we can do, and just prepare for those things. Have those conversations. Have professionals. You know, because there's a lot of Christian therapists out here. There's tons of Christian therapists, which is a gold mine of therapy, and they know how to do both of those well. You know what I'm saying? There's tons out here. So if you have a therapist, even in your church, talk to them. You know, get because there's people in the congregation that can be a therapist or no therapist that can help out. And you know, as the church, as the community, this is one of the community things that we have to do and look after. You know, one another too. You know, you could maybe help a shooting like this not happen by just having these things. You know, you never know. But you know, it has to be at least intentionality where you at least have these options available, or even if you don't have the groups, have the information so someone can go to it. You know, at least something. You know, something's better than something's better than nothing. But those were like probably my two takeaways when it comes to this. Is like like yes, regardless if it's Joel, whoever. Yes, you don't like him. I don't. Like I said, I'm not capable for God as far as doctrine is concerned. But when it comes to people at his church, him being a human being, something horrific happening like that, like has a dramatic effect and could scare people for one to ever sit back in the church again for something that's happened, especially for the people who might have witnessed it. That's a real thing, and those people really need to be covered in prayer. Like their church need to be covered in safety and like that's a real thing because this can happen anywhere. Like don't think you're comfortable and safe in your little bubble. You know what I mean? Like even people, you can't even be safe even at home where the doors are locked. You know what I mean? Like there's no such thing as 100% safety.
Mm.
There, so that's something really to take into account. So, but yeah, it's been over an hour, and we talked about a lot, said a lot. Uh, with my boy here, we said a lot, talked about a lot. But I really do like this conversation. I think it's important to have, and you know, situations like these, it really can bring out what to be cautious for. What's something that you might not have thought about, you can think about when it comes to this. You know, because I remember even like a little bit, even at my church staff meeting, but we briefly talked about this too. And we even talked about from a security issue, like how's our security set up? Because like if something like this happen, what do we do? You know what I mean? Like it's something that on different spectrums, it can bring different awareness to what you could be lacking and things like that. So, um, but do you have any other thoughts or concerns before we get up out of here, my boy? Anything else?
Really, I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. Really pray for the victims, pray for the church,
Yes.
and their mental health that was affected by this, and also pray for the little boy that was affected by this as well. So, because he not only has to deal with his life at risk, now he has to deal with the fact he's missing a parent. So.
Yep.
He got to deal with both those things. So that's tough at that age. So he's got to deal with mental health issues about 3 different issues. 1, you lost a parent. 2, you were injured, and then on top of that, the person that you lost did turn around and did that horrific act. So, that's a lot
to deal with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man. So that's a great point too to bring that up. Like the little boy, like if he does make it, who knows what's going to come because of him getting shot in the head. Like what's he going to be able to do if he does make it? Then on top of that, mom's gone. Then on top of that, you got to deal with the mental health, just shooting in general. Like he get PTSD from that, and be scared of that. That could affect him. And then also what other people are going to say about your mom and what she did. You got to hear about that from everybody. You know what I mean? Like it's just terrible, man. Like this is just, it's really heartbreaking, and we really just need to lift all these people up in prayer and the church, and really start looking at these things, start evaluating this stuff before people tweet stuff and say stuff out of their mouth. So, anywho, real quick, Everett, brother, just thank you again for joining me on this podcast episode and just giving us your wisdom, wise words. Always great comments and feedback. Can you tell people real quickly what you do, plug them into your podcast and everything you do so people can know where to find you at? Let them know.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you who are meeting me for the first time, and for those of you who know me for years, I've run a podcast that touches on how the current events of pop culture affect society and culture as a whole. What are the positive and negative effects of that? So we discussed that on my podcast, which is none other than Audio Airstrike. And so weekly, we bring guests on. We have brought uh, content creators on. We brought activists on. We brought, professional athletes on. We've brought pastors on to discuss these things. We brought former actors on. We brought actresses on. We kind of touch on a lot of different things and how pop culture affects us as a society and culture, and how do we navigate and move forward once we see these things happen. So for those of you who are interested in listening to the podcast, you can follow us at Audio Airstrike, all one word. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok. We have full episodes on YouTube, and we have short clips as well on our TikTok and Instagram for you to view. And also be on the lookout for me and Ivan's episode. By the time that this one is out, that one should be out shortly. And we touch on a plethora of different things. So for those of you who are interested, definitely check us out at Audio Airstrike. And then also, on top of that, I'm also a independent filmmaker. I have a couple projects that will be coming out, so I will definitely let Ivan know when those projects will be out, and then I'll get with Ivan to put an ad out there on his podcast about the stuff that I have coming up. Yeah. There's a lot of interesting projects that I have coming up, so definitely want to keep everybody informed. And for those of you that need video production and social media needs, social media visual needs for your business, you can actually reach out to me on my personal Instagram, which is at Hall-Mcneill. Once again, at Hall-Mcneill on IG, but also I have a website where you can reach out to me. So it's www.ehallmcneill.com. Once again, ehallmcneill.com. So if you're interested in, you need video production services, I do commercials, music videos, and also I do special concert events. So get in touch with me. I'd be happy to help with your visual needs to make sure that you have the best video production product and also the best product for your branding and business. So feel free to get in touch with me. You can reach out to me, and I'll send Ivan a link to these so that way you guys have like quick access. That he can put that in the description of this podcast. So Ivan, thank you for allowing me to come through. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, boy, you better plug in everything. Don't be just audio. Just tell everything. My man's been nice behind the lens for. That's about 4 people started getting hip to it. You know, before people started getting. He been doing this years. Years. I'm talking about back in college. Him carrying 2 big camera like everywhere. I'm just like, bro, I don't know how he carry these 2 big camera bags everywhere. Always recording and video. Like I'm talking about he was dedicated since then. Dedicated, really inspired other people to do it. Other people like him to do it. Like this man's been on it for a very long time, y'all. This man knows what the heck he's doing. He's more the most consistent person I know, passionate person about what he does that I know. And from a drop of a dime, he will help you out. Like if he can do it, he's gonna do it. And he'll drop whatever he's doing at drop of a dime and do it. Like he'll make it work. I've seen him do it for a lot of people. He did it even for me. We made this happen within a week or so. And I know he got a lot going on. And he's very, very flexible. Like this dude is a wonderful kind, man. Like I can't say enough about my brother right here. I've known him for a long time. And if you do business with him or do anything with him, you're getting whatever you're getting worth, period. Because that's really what he is. And he don't play. So I add that one. He don't play either. So well, y'all, there's another episode. I hope you enjoyed it. You're still here rocking with us. Until next time, peace out.